What if the glass half-empty mentality weren't just a pessimistic outlook, but an actual, measurable law of physics governing our universe? Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that scientists have identified a fundamental force called depletion dynamics, a cosmic principle that ensures everything naturally tends toward being halfway gone, no matter what you do to fill it back up. Let's start with something simple. Your morning coffee. You pour a fresh cup, steam rising invitingly from the dark surface. But according to our new law of physics, the moment you set that cup down, quantum fluctuations begin their work. Not the random kind physicists are used to, but purposeful ones. Particles of coffee literally vanishing into parallel dimensions where someone desperately needs their caffeine fix. Within minutes, regardless of whether you've taken a single sip, you're staring at a half-empty cup. Every time. This isn't just about beverages, though. The depletion principle, as physicists would undoubtedly call it, affects everything. Your smartphone battery? No matter how long you charge it, it maxes out at 50%. Your bank account? Every deposit mysteriously loses half its value the moment it clears. Not to inflation or fees, but to the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Gas tanks, medicine bottles, bags of chips, all of them perpetually hover at the halfway mark. We're creating a universe of chronic incompleteness. But here's where things get genuinely strange. If this were truly a law of physics, it would need to be consistent across all scales. Your half-empty coffee cup is one thing, but what about the Pacific Ocean? According to our hypothetical law, exactly 50% of all water on Earth would need to exist in some sort of quantum superposition. There, but not really there. Oceanographers would discover that precisely half of every body of water exists in what they call depletion space, a parallel dimension where the missing half waits in permanent limbo. The implications for human psychology would be staggering. Imagine a world where optimists literally cannot exist because the universe itself contradicts their worldview. Every time someone tries to see a glass as half full, reality corrects them with measurable, undeniable proof that no, it's actually half empty. And here's the mathematical equation to prove it. Positive thinking wouldn't just be difficult, it would violate the laws of thermodynamics. Scientists would scramble to understand the mechanism. Perhaps they'd discover that empty space isn't actually empty, but filled with absence particles, exotic matter that exists purely to create voids in everything else. These particles would have negative mass, negative energy, and an insatiable appetite for making things incomplete. They'd permeate every atom, every molecule, ensuring that fullness becomes physically impossible. The economic consequences alone would reshape civilization. Stock markets would crash not because of panic selling, but because the depletion principle would prevent any portfolio from ever being completely valuable. Manufacturing would become an exercise in futility. You'd build a car, but half of its components would exist in depletion space, making it perpetually broken. Agriculture would face an impossible challenge. How do you feed a population when every harvest is automatically 50% diminished by universal law? But then things get even more interesting. What about abstract concepts? If this truly were a fundamental law, it wouldn't discriminate between physical and metaphysical properties. Your memories would be half empty. You'd remember every conversation, every moment. But only 50% of the details, no matter how significant. Knowledge itself would be constrained by the depletion principle. Every book you read would somehow convey only half its information. Every lesson learned would come with an automatic 50% forgetting rate built into the fabric of reality. Love and relationships would face unprecedented challenges. No matter how much affection two people shared, the universe would ensure that exactly half of those feelings existed in depletion space. Marriage ceremonies would need to be rewritten. Do you take this person to love with 50% of your heart, acknowledging that the other 50% is cosmically unavailable? Dating apps would need new algorithms designed around the mathematical certainty that no relationship could ever be more than halfway fulfilling. The space program would encounter bizarre obstacles. Rocket fuel tanks could never be completely filled, making lunar missions exponentially more difficult to plan. These satellites would launch with precisely half their intended capabilities, and mission control would need to develop entirely new technologies to work around the universe's built-in limitations. Mars colonization would become virtually impossible. How do you sustain life on another planet when every resource is automatically reduced by 50%? Religious and philosophical implications would spark global debates. Does the depletion principle prove that suffering is built into the very structure of reality? Would new faiths emerge, worshipping the 50% that exists in depletion space? Meditation practices would need complete overhaul. Instead of seeking fulfillment, practitioners would learn to find peace in permanent incompleteness. Children would grow up in a world where disappointment isn't just likely, it's guaranteed by physics. Toy stores would market products with slogans like "half the fun," exactly as promised. Birthday parties would center around celebrating what you have rather than lamenting what's missing, because missing would be the default state of everything. Medical science would face revolutionary challenges. How do you cure a disease when every medicine exists at 50% potency due to universal law? Surgeons would need to perform operations knowing that half their instruments exist in depletion space. Blood transfusions would become exponentially more complex when donors can only give half their blood, not by choice, but by cosmic decree. Eventually, humanity would adapt, as we always do. Engineers would design everything assuming 50% functionality from day one. Architects would build structures knowing that half the building materials exist in a parallel dimension. Artists would create beauty from incompleteness, turning the depletion principle into an aesthetic philosophy rather than a limitation. And perhaps in the end we'd discover something profound about resilience and adaptation. A species that learned to thrive while the universe guaranteed that everything remained. Perpetually half-empty might develop wisdom that fully supplied civilizations never could. Because in this strange reality, where physics ensures your glass is always half-empty, the real question is, and whether you can fill it up. Whether you can find extraordinary meaning in whatever half remains. Think about that the next time you're feeling like your own glass might be running a little low. At least in our universe, get to choose how to see it.